So, good day everyone. My name is Sarnet Nailand, and together with my members or co-members of Group 7, we'll be discussing to you about the globalization and globalism and the difference between the two. So first, we will go with the globalization, I mean first. So globalization is all about links, connections, and interrelatedness of things, people, and countries. So, however, when it is compared to the third globalism, globalization would be better described as the increase or decline in the degree of globalism. So, in contrast to this, globalism refers to the network of connections that transcends distances of different countries in the world. So, in other words, the links among countries and people are better associated with globalism, while the speed and linking technologies are across borders is globalization. So, what is the difference between globalization and globalism, the guys? So, here, many people would think that the two terms refer to the same phenomenon. However, there are important differences between the two. So, here, let's tackle first the globalism. So globalism at its core seeks to describe the explain or and seeks to describe and explain nothing more than a world which is characterized by networks of connections that span multi-continental distances. So it attempts also to understand all the interconnections of the modern world and the highlights patterns that underline and explain them. So in contrast, we have also here the globalization. So globalization refers to the increase or decline in the degree of globalism. So it focuses on the forces, the dynamism or speed of these changes. So um, in short, consider globalism as the underlying basic network, while globalization refers to the dynamic shrinking of distance on a larger scale or large scale.
So, globalism is phenomenon with ancient roots. Thus, the issue is not how old globalism is, but rather how thin or thick it is in any given of time. So, thin and thick. So, globalism is thin as it become thicker. Globalizations come in. This means that being able to connect countries in the world through more dynamic and faster way is globalization. Let us take the global trade as an example. So, in the past, Silk Road served as the trade routes among countries in Europe and in Asia. So, so what is Silk Road? As I mentioned earlier, so um, where day and night coexist, Europe and Asia spanning 11 times zones and an area of 50 million square kilometers, a global center for thousands of years, the Silk Road. This patient transportation network that connected Europe and Asia spoke of the exploration and tricking of countries' people, their joy and their failures in thousands of years of history. Aside from trade of sale between continents, other products, even the illegal ones, were exchanged among the trader and consumer. In addition, culture interactions among people were made through their trades. However, they were more felt by a relatively small group of people, especially those who are actually on the road and did the trades. The connection were not intense nor thick. In contrast to the contemporary world, globalizations become increasingly side. This is where globalizations come in. So if you look at global trades today, it has reached a great number of people around the world. For example, the selling of the products is not solely done through physical transaction but can be done online as well. This allows one who has access to the computers and the World Wide Web connected with millions of people around the world. Aside from the number of people, the speed was also affected by transition from the globalism to take from globalism to take globalization. So in the past, if you are European trader taking the sell or going to China, it would take days or weeks to sell the products. But today, it would be only take a few seconds or minutes to sell, buy, and exchange products and service with other people, even they are thousands mile away from you. A concrete example of this is a change of the price of oil, which can happen overnight depending its price in the world market.
Dimension of globalism. So, both globalism and globalizations are all too often defined in strictly economic terms, as if the world economy as just defined globalism, but other forms are equally important. There are four distinct dimensions of globalism. One, economic globalisms. Two, environmental globalisms. And three, military globalism. And four, social globalisms. So, next is economic globalism. So, economic globalism involves long-distance flows of goods, services, and capital and the information. So perceptions that accompany market exchange. So these flows in turn organize other processes linked to them. So one example of economic globalization is the low wage production in Asia for the United States and European markets. Economic flows market and organization as a multinational firms all go together. So next is environmental globalism. So environmental globalism refers to the long distance transport of materials in the atmosphere or oceans, or of the biological substances such as pathogens or genetic materials and affect human health and well-being. So, in contrast, example of environmental globalization include the accelerating depletions of the stratospheric ozone layer as a result of ozone depleting chemicals, or the spread of the AIDS virus from Central Africa around the world beginning at the end of the 1970s.
Military globalism. Military globalism refers to long distance networks in which force and the threat or promise of force are deployed. A well known example of military globalism is the balance of terror between the United States and the Soviet Union during the Cold War, a strategic interdependence that was both acute and well recognized. What made this interdependence distinctive was not that it was not totally new, but that the scale and the speed of the potential conflict arising from interdependence were so enormous. Also, military globalization manifested itself in recent times in the tragic events of September 11. Here, geographical distances were shrunk in the lowest mountains of Afghanistan, provided the launching pad of attacks on New York and Washington, some 4,000 miles away. The fourth dimension is social and cultural globalism. It involves movements of ideas, information, images, and lot of people who of course carry ideas and information with them. For example, in the current era, social and cultural globalization is driven by the internet, which reduces cost and globalizes communications, making the flow of ideas increasingly independent of other forms of globalization. However, at the same time as economic globalism was declining during the two world wars, military globalism rose to heights as did many aspects of social globalism.
So now let's move to the conclusion. So, without a specifying adjective, general statements about globalism are often meaningless or misleading. So, the same applies when talking about globalization or globalism today. So, based on the historic evidence, we should expect that globalism will be accompanied by continuing uncertainty. And also, there will be a continual competition between increased complexity and uncertainty on the one hand, and efforts by governments, market participants, and others to comprehend and manage these systems on the others. So, in conclusion to our discussion or globally the difference between globalization and globalism, we should not expect or fear that globalism will lead to homogenization. Instead, it will expose us more frequently and more variations to the differences that surrounds us. So that ends our report about the difference between globalization and globalism. And thank you for your listening and have a great day. Thank you.